Following the huge backlash and pressure from the general public as well as the health experts, the government are now going to be rethinking their policy to sack the NHS workers who are not taking the jab. Now, there's one important topic left because, of course, they're lifting all the restrictions, but let's also talk about the NHS mandates, because the initial proposal was so stupid because they didn't even consider the ones who are exempt, medically exempt. So NHS workers, the deadline is basically the 1st of April. They'll be fired. Thousands of them, 70,000 of them will be sacked, and then a lot of them are actually exempt. Well, some of them at least, let's say some of them are exempt medically, but also clearly there's no point about talking about choice. But the government are now rethinking. They're considering to pause this program, which is kind of welcoming, because in a sense that a lot of people say, well, no, they should just drop it. Well, yes, but if they pause it, it's essentially them dropping it because they can't reintroduce it. It's going to be impossible for them to say they've basically lost the whole argument, because if they bring it back, then like today, when we had all the hundreds and thousands of NHS workers who are throwing their uniforms at the gates of Downing Street, so if they reintroduce it, the same thing's going to happen. So there's absolutely no point. They realize that there's this pressure that there will be a massive emergency and crisis within the NHS because they're not going to have enough people working for them. This temporary suspension it's been actively looked at, so we'll see if they're going to actually do something about it. But I believe that they're going to have to. They have no choice at this point but to actually pause / drop this nonsensical argument. But there's a lot of good work that's been done by activists, by the people who are out today, but also the sound freedom fighters inside the House of Commons. The likes of Mark Harper, who somehow looks like the next James Bond in this photo. To Mark Harper, who, by the way, is hopefully going to be coming on this channel. I'm going to invite him. I'm basically kind of talking with friends to sort it out. Come on the channel to do an exclusive interview, hopefully soon. But he stood up in the House of Commons this week, and to the Prime Minister, he mentioned the importance of avoiding an NHS crisis, a real crisis, not a Guardian headline crisis, and the Prime Minister is now being scared.
The government's current plan is to say to our valuable NHS staff that if they refuse to be vaccinated, they're to be sacked. And those sackings are to commence in a couple of weeks' time with no compensation. We know now that the Secretary of State is being advised by his own officials due to the lack of protection against transmission. This needs to be rethought.
Well, he is absolutely spot on. It needs to be rethought because it's not just the argument for pro-choice. It's not about that. It's actually about the logic or lack of logic of this policy and the consequences. And actually, is it going to do anything in terms of transmission? Because, even with or without it, it's still going to happen. It's simply, at this point, about how we have dealt with the whole situation over time as a disease. And as a mild disease, or whatever you want to say it at this point. But there's also the massive next debate that we're going to have is the next steps for Downing Street. And if Boris Johnson really wants to save his job, then this could be the next point for them to actually do. First, sort out the border. Second, remove these measures. And then we will rethink to see if you're worth staying in Downing Street. And also get rid of your team, replace your team, bring in Lord Frost as your chief of staff and see how it works, and then you might get your votes back. You never know. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tousi and we are the media.